This is for a fella who's got an F150 of the same vintage as this one. This is an 88, so it's an 8th gen F150. And he's got the same engine. This is the 5.0. And his engine is still in the factory trim. Still has all the crap that Ford layered on top of it. You know, this engine is a 302, okay? Underneath all this crap is the same 302 that Ford was making back in the 1960s. They just layered so much stuff on it, you can't even see the engine. I guarantee you it's down there. And so he was asking about, you know, what I removed from mine to improve access and reliability, etc., etc. And like, for example, I don't have EGR. Okay, this is where the EGR would ordinarily go into the intake manifold, and it's this huge thing. I mean, it's massive. It's amazing. And there's a metal tube that blocks in these spark plugs. You know, you can't get to the spark plugs on this side of the engine because there's a metal tube covering them up. You know, it's craziness. So I used to have a pipe plug, and then I had to take this engine out. I got a crack in the driver's side cylinder head between two of the valves, intake exhaust valves. It's a very thin casting between the top of the combustion chamber and the water jacket. It's like maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I mean, I was amazed when I saw how thin that casting was. And eventually it cracked between those two valves, and you know, I was sucking water into the cylinder from the coolant jacket and making steam, etc., etc. You know, pretty standard. And I wasn't about to replace the cylinder head with the engine in the vehicle. That's just madness. You know, take the engine out, do it in an engine stand. It's a whole lot simpler, it's a whole lot easier, and then put the engine back in. And what I discovered, it would only start with starting fluid, ether. Once the engine started, it ran just fine, but it would only start with ether. And so I said, well, you know, I can fix this. This is a DeLorean cold start injector. I don't use the K-Jetronic on my DeLoreans. So I rigged up the DeLorean cold start injector, which is attached to the starting circuit here. And this is an electrically operated injector. So, you know, you're guaranteed that as long as the starter motor is spinning, this thing is open and, you know, spraying fuel. But after I rigged it up, EEC decided that it wanted to start behaving itself, because you don't need that injector anymore. The engine starts just fine without it. So one thing, I don't know if all Fords do this. When I very first start mine, I have like this fast idle, and it'll step down on its own within a minute. But if you just blip the throttle plates like that, it'll, you know, come down to the normal 800 RPM. And so, you know, that is my idle. You see, it starts just fine without that cold start injector, but I went to all the trouble to put it on. I'm not going to take it off now. One nuance in my installation here, you want the check engine light on, okay? Because if the check engine light ever goes off, that's when I have running issues. And it only goes off when I change the battery. Somehow disconnecting the battery causes EEC to go into like a reset mode. And right now, EEC has looked for all the stuff that I've removed. You know, the smog pump is gone, and the EGR is gone, and it can't find them. So it's in a default mode of some sort right now. But, you know, it runs just fine. And then on the highway, I'm about 2,500, 2,800 RPM. So let me rev this up. that's what it looks like when I'm driving on the highway. I drive this truck to DC once a month. So every month this truck travels 1,000 miles. And then, you know, you get to a stoplight, and there's your 800 RPM idle. And so you see the truck runs just fine without all the additional goodies that Ford layered on it. I'm gonna have to put you down here for just a minute so I can use both hands to pull the key out. This one here. Oh, by the way, this steering column, if you compare my steering column to his, you'll notice that my key tumbler's up here and his will be down here. This is a 7th generation steering column. The truck originally had a tilt column, and those tilt columns go bad. There's a metal fitting that goes between the key tumbler and the rod that activates the ignition switch. The ignition switch is at the bottom of the steering column. So it's metal rod that then comes up to this metal fitting. Well, that metal fitting goes bad. And, you know, people will monkey and monkey and monkey with trying to keep their tilt column working. Or you just go to the junkyard, get a 7th gen. This is a 1980 through 1986 steering column that doesn't tilt, so there's no intermediate fitting. My tumbler is connected directly to the rod that then runs down to the ignition switch. So, you know, it'll never go bad. It'll last forever. But the little intermediate fitting on mine went bad, and who in the world uses that tilt column anyway? You know, it's a truck. I can't imagine anybody using it. But anyway, so that is a 7th gen steering column with the 8th gen steering wheel transferred over. Obviously I don't have cruise control. I don't need it. I'm a big boy. I think the last vestiges of the cruise control, this was part of the vacuum supply for the cruise control, and I think that's the last vestiges of that. This is the EEC module. This is what controls all the fuel injection. So, you know, if you're wondering where your onboard computer is, that's it right there. He was asking about TFI ignition. You've got to use the TFI distributor if you're running the fuel injection, because this little pickup module here sends a signal to the EEC module. That's how the EEC module knows where the crankshaft is it receives a signal from this little pickup that hangs off the distributor there. You know, like I said, no EGR. If you look down there, that's my heater core takeoff. From the factory, there's this stalk, this steel stalk that sticks up that has all these coolant lines coming off of it. You know, which is just a problem waiting to happen. That is a brass elbow right there that will never go bad. It only has one coolant line attached to it, which is the heater core. This is my heater core shutoff. I still have the vacuum operated heater core shut off, but that thing doesn't shut the heater core all the way off. This truck doesn't have air conditioning. See, I got a idler pulley where the air conditioning compressor would ordinarily be, so I have to use the dash vents to blow ambient air on me, and the heater core was still getting heat. Even with this thing, and it does work. It does suck in when I fire the engine up, but it wasn't cutting it off all the way, so I put a ball valve. I guarantee you right now there is zero hot coolant going through my heater core. And then in the winter, you know, I open it back up. Now I have hot water for heat in the winter, and that's the summertime setting. I just leave this thing plugged in. I went to all the trouble to put it on there, because I had to rig up the line to feed it, so I'm not about to take it off. Everything is fuel injection hose. I don't have any of those plastic fuel lines. Those are the hoses, and that's fuel injection hose. That's proper fuel injection hose. But you know, from the factory, it had all these plastic fuel lines that go bad. So I replaced all those plastic fuel lines with rubber, so it wouldn't go bad. It also makes it a whole lot easier to remove the intake manifold if you ever need to, because you're just dealing with rubber hoses. Those plastic fuel lines have this funny fitting. You got to use this release tool to try to get them to let go, and they're just a colossal pain in the ass. So I got rid of them and put rubber. I mean, everything should be pretty self-explanatory. I rigged up 2 bypasses here if I ever need to. This powers EEC ignition from a fuse right here. This is coming off the fuse. If I ever need to, I can plug these 2 together, and that will guarantee that EEC is getting power. And then this is the fuel pump here, and this is coming off the same fuse. So if I ever need to, I can bypass the fuel pump relay, just plug those 2 together, and that'll guarantee that the fuel pump spins. So I'm still at the mercy of the EEC computer, but I can, you know, pretty much force everything, bypass these relays. This is where the relays are. Obviously I don't use them, but if it's ever pouring down rain, I'm on the side of I-95 and my fuel pump relay has gone bad, I'm just going to plug those 2 together. That'll force the fuel pump to spin, and I'll get right back on the road again, hopefully. So that is what I have done to the engine. If he has any questions, you know, just ask me, and I'll make another video. But you don't need all the crap that Ford piled on this engine from the factory. You can remove 99.9% of it. You've still got crap on top of the engine, but you can like at least get to the spark plugs to change the spark plugs. What was Ford thinking? You know, they had to block in all the spark plugs so you can't get in there and change your spark plugs. You know, and they have coolant lines everywhere. You don't need all the coolant lines. All you need is the heater core and the radiator itself. And, you know, those are the vacuum lines that I have. You do need a map sensor. That's the map sensor there. EEC is looking for a map sensor, so you do have to have that connected to the manifold. But that is what I'm running on. I've been running like this for, you know, decades. Every month this truck makes a 1,000-mile trip to and from DC. So I 100% guarantee you it can be done.